The Blue Door. This is a story about awakening, not the kind that comes with fireworks or fanfare, the kind that comes with silence and noticing, with breath. It follows Chrissa, a woman who had done all the things expected of her until the day she didn't. Until the day she listened, first to a pull, then to a page, and then to her own knowing. What started out as a quiet shift became a doorway, not a magical portal, but a deep human turning point. The blue door isn't fantasy. It's not a destination. It's what happens when we stop performing and start becoming, and when we stop chasing and start remembering who we are. This story is part memoir, part fable, part invitation to slow down, to feel more, and to trust the quiet. And maybe, just maybe, you find your own blue door wherever you are. Chapter 1. I didn't move into the apartment. It moved into me. That's what I tell people when I ask how I ended up in a one-bedroom walk-up above a tailor shop with crooked front steps and a mailbox that moans in the wind. I wasn't looking for magic. I was looking for quiet, and maybe, if I'm honest, an exit. Though part of me wondered if there was something else waiting, something just beyond the noise I left behind. After 22 years of being married to a man who barely noticed I existed, even the idea of leaving had started to feel like something to live for. We had 2 kids early on, a boy and a girl. That part was good. Not spectacular, not tragic, just fine. The kind of fine that makes you question if fine is enough to stay half dead inside. He wasn't cruel, not in the obvious ways. He never raised his voice or hit me. He just forgot me, forgot I was there, forgot I was a person. There was a company picnic once. I came, dressed, smiled neatly at strangers, stood awkwardly beside him while he talked to people I didn't know, and then he disappeared. No explanation. Just vanished into the crowd as if he'd arrived alone. An office lady named Marla gave me a ride home. He never even noticed. When I brought it up later, he just shrugged, "Oh, I forgot you were there." And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how unsurprising it was. He noticed when the bed wasn't made right, when the garden got too weedy, when the socks weren't folded the proper way. He noticed dust, missed calls, crooked picture frames. But he never, not once, noticed when I was slipping away. Even when I was right there, cooking his dinner, folding his socks perfectly, hosting little birthday parties for our kids, and while he talked golf in the corner, I was already leaving in my head, in my body, vacating in slow motion. At some point, I stopped caring about getting it right. There was no right. There was no winning, only doing more. And then one day I stopped feeling altogether. Not sad, not mad, just vacant. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It was inevitable. A quiet, invisible uncoupling, like a zip unzipping in the background of your life. Slowly enough that no one hears it, yet sure enough that by the time you do, you're already out of it. So when the apartment showed up, one email, one phone call, one showing, I said yes before I had time to talk myself out of it. The place smelled like lemon oil and something faintly floral, like a grandmother had just tidied up and stepped out for tea. At 4 p.m., the kitchen turned to honey. That sealed the deal. My aunt used to say some of the places had their own soul. Back then I thought she was being dramatic. Now I wasn't so sure. 2 months in, I caught myself bracing for tension that never came. No one citing how I loaded the dishwasher. No one critiquing which way the toilet paper roll was put on. Just me, my tea, my odd little apartment that sometimes felt like it exhaled when I walked in through the door. It didn't feel haunted. It felt ready, like it had been waiting for someone to come alive again. Maybe I had been too. I caught myself humming once while doing the dishes. It startled me. I couldn't remember the last time I had done that. Chapter 2. I didn't take much from the old house. Not out of spite, just indifference. I didn't want the stuff, didn't want the memory of asking if he liked this or liked that, didn't want to hear his voice in my head saying, "That's not really my style." I took the things that mattered, a few boxes marked baby stuff, finger paintings, birthday cards with backward letters, one small onesie that still smelt faintly of baby soap, Amy's handprints in purple paint, Dalen's crayon scribbled notes with backwards E's, a tub of old photos, and a box from Aunt Eleanor labeled doilies, keep or donate, question mark. That was it. The rest I left behind. Furniture, towels, kitchen gadgets, art prints he picked out to make the house look more grown up. I didn't want a grown up house anymore. I wanted a home, one that felt like me. So I built it piece by piece from secondhand stores, side of the road finds, impulse buys I didn't second guess, a mustard yellow armchair I spotted on Kijiji from a woman named Tilda who threw in a ceramic mug just because, a set of mismatched vintage dishes with delicate floral rims and tiny chips that made them feel lived in, curtains chosen not for privacy but for how they moved when the windows were open. Everything my husband would have hated. Yes, I call him my husband. And that made me smile. Unpacking was slower than I expected. Not because I had so much stuff, but because for once I cared about where it went. The box marked Eleanor sat on the floor for days. I wasn't avoiding it exactly. It didn't call to me the way the dishes and the blankets did. One Saturday morning, after an extra long sleep-in and 2 mugs of tea, I finally opened it. Mostly doilies, crocheted, cream-colored, a little musty, the kind of thing my ex would have rolled his eyes at and called clutter. There were a few old postcards, too, with short messages like, took the bus to Kelowna, the lilacs are blooming, made elderberry syrup today, no one got sick this year. Soft, simple, a woman quietly living her life. Underneath it all, a thin bundle wrapped in a dish towel with my name written on it and a tag with Eleanor's handwriting. Chrissa, that was it. I set it aside for now. That afternoon, I rolled out a cheap yoga mat in the living room. It didn't match anything, I don't care. Meditation had never been my thing. Too still, too silent, too much space for thoughts to poke at me. But breathwork, that was different. I found it months earlier through a random YouTube video titled Breathe to Become One. I'd clicked on it on a whim during a particularly dull afternoon and found myself crying halfway through without knowing. Now I did it once or twice a week, not as a ritual, not for results, but because it made me feel here. On the mat, I settled in. Inhale through the nose, full belly. Exhale through the mouth, let go, repeat. My body softened as I breathed. Not blissed out, just grounded. I noticed the sound of my own breath, the way the light moved across the floor, the faint smell of old cedar in the doily box. No visions, no revelations, just a steadying, a remembering. After 22 years of walking around on eggshells, I was finally seeing the ground beneath me. And that, quiet as it was, felt like it was something, a beginning. Chapter 3. Aunt Eleanor had always been the odd duck in the family. That's what everyone had said anyway. She wore long cotton skirts when everyone else was in jeans, grew her own herbs in the background before wellness became a billion-dollar industry, made her own lotions, didn't wear deodorant, and once brought lentil stew to Thanksgiving. She was never married, never stayed anywhere long. I remember hearing that she lived in a converted school bus for a while, then with a pottery collective near Nelson, then disappeared altogether, postcards arriving sporadically from places like Whitehorse or Salt Springs Island. Nobody really knew what she did. When Eleanor died, the family gave away her few belongings without ceremony. I had taken the box, mostly out of sentiment. I couldn't really let go of anything. So now here it was, sitting on my kitchen table in the late afternoon. I unwrapped the towel-covered bundle I'd found at the bottom of the doily box. It exactly wasn't a journal, not a diary of feelings or confessions, more like a series of pages, each one written in firm slanted cursive like it was meant to last. Old school wisdom in faded blue ink. No fluff, no hashtags, just titles like How to Clear the Static, What Stillness Really Feels Like, Rituals that cost nothing. When you can't meditate, do this instead. How I reclaim my mornings. Being alone without being lonely. Each entry was only a page or two long, some even just a paragraph, yet every one of them felt like she left it exactly what she needed to on that day. I flipped to the first one. It was titled, Start with One Clear Surface. Make space for space. Choose one surface in your home, counter, shelf, table, and clear it completely. Wipe it, breathe, and let it stay empty for 24 hours. Watch what it does to your thoughts. I blinked and I looked over at my kitchen counter, still cluttered with unpacked bits and yesterday's mail. I didn't hesitate. I cleared it, wiped it down, little candle on the end. Nothing dramatic happened, no angels sang, no energy portals opened, but the air around it felt lighter, and so did I. That night, I left the journal open on the coffee table next to my tea. It didn't feel like homework. It felt like a friend who wasn't in a rush. Eleanor hadn't written to impress anyone. She'd written to remember. And now, somehow, I felt remembered too. Not by a ghost, not by fate, just by something that had quietly waited for me to be ready. Chapter 4. I didn't read the whole journal at once. There was something sacred about not rushing it, like sipping from a cup that refilled itself as long as you didn't gulp. Each entry felt complete in itself. Each one offered just enough to try and just enough to feel. I started with the start to clear one surface. And that single tidy counter had become a touchstone. I caught myself walking past it slower, as if the empty space gave me permission to pause. Now, a few mornings later, I turned to the next page. When you can't meditate, do this instead. Movement is meditation for those who live too much in their heads. Put on music that doesn't annoy you and let your body lead. This is not for burning calories. This is not about exercise. It's for remembering you are alive. I smiled. It sounded like Eleanor, blunt, kind, and right on time. I opened Spotify. No plan, no playlist. I typed in the first word that came to my mind, heart. The song that popped up was My Heart by Paul Luftenegger. I clicked play. The music started gently, soft piano and warm vocals, and the lyrics floated in and something inside me clicked. I didn't just hear them, I felt them. Each line moved through me like a wave, like my whole body had become my ear. I let my eyes close, let my arms sway. I let my soul begin to move. Not perform, not dance, move. My breath deepened, my spine softened. My chest tingled like it was being cracked open in the most tender way. By the time the song ended, I was crying. Not sad tears, not even joyful ones, just true. The next song that came up automatically, Reflection by Candy. I didn't know the artist, had never heard the name, but the sound was rich and light, and all at once felt like sunlight bouncing off a lake. Again, the lyrics reached into me, and again my body responded before my mind could interfere. Over the next few days, more songs arrived. Not ones I searched for, ones that seemed to find me. Tracks with titles like Inside and Becoming, Letting Love In. I wasn't chasing a playlist, I was following a feeling, and something was happening, something good. I started doing the practice twice a day, just 20 minutes. Music, movement, eyes closed, letting my soul dance. I didn't call it breathwork anymore. I didn't call it dance either. I didn't feel I needed to label it. All I knew was this, it was working. Something in me was waking up, not to impress or explain, but to exist, and not just to exist, to thrive. For the first time in my life, I felt the early stirrings of something I had only ever given to others, love. From myself to myself, not in the form of affirmations or bath bombs, but the quiet rhythm of my own body saying, I'm still here and I'm worth listening to. Chapter 5. Self-love didn't show up in my life as a lightning bolt. It came in smaller, quieter ways, like not saying yes when I meant no. My real first test came in the form of a divorce settlement. An email, a polite email, 2 pages attached with a note that said something like, I figured this was fair, let me know what you think. It wasn't fair, not even close. He was offering me the worn-out car and a fraction of the savings, and zero acknowledgement for the years I'd spent at home while he built his career. There was a time I might have signed it anyway, to keep the peace, to get it over with, to avoid being difficult. Instead, I took a breath and replied, that doesn't reflect what I contributed, and if you're not open to something fair, I'll wait for the judge to decide, or we can start again from a place of mutual respect. No yelling, no guilt, just clarity. I didn't ask for more than what I deserved. I just stopped pretending that less was enough. The next day came the coffee setup at work. I'd done it every Monday morning for nearly 3 years, setting out cups, checking creamers, wiping down the counters before anyone else arrived. No one had ever asked me to. It just started one day and it never stopped. So when Sandra from payroll emailed everyone asking who was doing it this month, I didn't answer right away. I paused, I breathed, and then I wrote, hey, just a thought, maybe we could start a simple rotation so everyone takes a turn. In the meantime, I'll be bringing my tea from a thermos to my desk. Hope that helps. That was it. No lecture, no performance, just a boundary. I started saying no in other ways too. No to dinners I didn't want to attend. No to favors that drained me. No to folding his socks after one of the kids forgot their laundry at my place. And every time I said no, gently, clearly, without over-explaining, something in me stood up a little taller. Not defensively, not spitefully, just finally. Self-love, it turned out, wasn't always soft. Sometimes it was the voice inside me that whispered, you don't have to explain yourself for existing. Or, if they're disappointed by your boundary, it doesn't mean that you were wrong to have one. Or just even, you're not being rude, you're being real. The journal had a line in it, one that I'd underlined twice. Boundaries are not walls, they are invitations to meet you where you are. I read that one out loud twice, let it settle in my bones. Then I made myself a cup of tea, lit a candle on my one clear surface and smiled. I was becoming the kind of woman who didn't need to defend her choices, just honor them. Chapter 6. It started with small things. No big announcements, no sweeping revelations, just a quiet noticing that the way I was living was different. My daughter Amy called one evening while I was making a cup of chamomile tea, not to ask for anything, just to say hi. Hey Mom, just checking in, how are you doing? I'm good, I said, watching the steam rise. Actually, I'm better than good. She paused. Yeah, you sound different. I feel different, I said, softer inside, calmer, like something's unwinding. She didn't pry, she just said, well, I like it. Whatever you're doing, it suits you. We talked for a while, nothing deep, just easy, and when we hung up, I realized I didn't feel drained like I used to sometimes. I felt met. Another day I ran into a neighbor in the laundry room, the one who always over-explained her latest crisis. I used to nod and offer sympathetic sounds. This time I listened, but I didn't absorb. I wished her well, and then I turned back to my laundry, and that was enough. The journal offered an entry I hadn't read yet. Let it be simple peace. It doesn't need proof. Joy doesn't need an explanation. Let the small moments speak louder than declarations. Let the quiet be enough. That entry stayed with me. Through long walks and slow dinners, the way I said it now, when I said yes, it's only when I meant it. The world around me hadn't changed at all, but my place in it had. And somehow, without effort or strategy, the people closest to me, Amy, Dylan, even my ex in his own awkward way, were beginning to notice. Not because I told them, but because I stopped performing and I stopped simply being, one quiet ripple at a time. Chapter 7. Dylan stopped by on a Sunday. No warning, just a knock on the door and his familiar half grin through the frosted glass. Hey Mom, he said, lifting a bag of groceries. Thought I'd restock your fridge. You still just eating soup and toast? I laughed and stepped aside. Well, I've upgraded to toast with hummus. He kicked off his shoes and stepped inside, then paused like he was seeing the place for the first time, which in a way he was. The soft colors, the music playing low in the background, the way everything had a place and nothing looked staged. Even the light in the room felt different. Whoa, he says, this is cool, chill, like in yoga Airbnb or something. I smiled, it's home. He unpacked oat milk, avocados, and some crackers he knew I liked. He'd always been thoughtful that way, not loud about it, just quietly tuned in. We chatted for a while, nothing heavy, weekend plans, work, and some show he was watching. Then halfway through buttering a bagel, he said, "You've changed, you know." I didn't look up right away. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, like, I don't mean like weird change, just different, calmer, lighter. I don't know how to explain it." I looked at him, not with pride, not with performance, just presence. "I feel lighter," I said, "less tangled up in those things that don't belong to me." He nodded, chewing. "Well, whatever it is, it looks good on you." I reached over and touched his wrist gently. "Thank you, that means a lot." He didn't flinch or pull away like he sometimes had in the past. When everything between us felt braced and brittle, he just smiled and kept eating. Later that evening, after he'd left with a "love you, Mom," and a casual wave, I curled up with Eleanor's journal again. No new entry, just one for rereading that had become like a quiet anthem for me. Hold space, not stories. You are not here to fix everyone. You are not a sponge, the translator, or the diplomat. Let people sit with their discomfort. Let them rise or rest on their own. Hold space, let it breathe. Most healing happens when we stop narrating it. I underlined that last sentence again. Then I folded my legs beneath me, closed my eyes, and let the stillness wrap around me like the blanket I had finally earned the right to keep. Chapter 8. The more I listened to myself, the quieter everything else became. I started working less, then not at all. I took long walks through neighborhoods I never noticed before. Let the breeze tug my coat open and the sun kiss my face. Sometimes I sat on the park bench for an hour doing nothing, just watching life unfold. Birds arguing over crusts, toddlers tumbling joyfully, teenagers talking too loud. I walked along the shoreline with my shoes in one hand, the cool water curling around my ankles like silk. I began to purge, not just clutter from my apartment, but mental noise too. Old guilt, old plans, old roles that no longer fit. One afternoon while folding laundry, I said it out loud. "I think I'm done here for now," and that was it. I took a formal leave of absence for work, told my kids and family I'd keep in touch, and I didn't offer a plan. I didn't even pretend to have a destination. I just needed a little space, and I'll text when I land wherever that is. I packed light, a few linen dresses, a passport, a journal, a scarf that could double as a shawl, comfortable shoes, and an open heart. At the airport, I stood in front of the departure board like a woman ordering dessert. A flight to Izmir, Turkey popped up. I couldn't explain it, didn't try to, just bought the ticket. Izmir was warm, alive, old and young at once. I could smell the sea from my taxi window. I checked into a hotel facing the Aegean, ordered a small glass of strong tea and a plate of olives, cheese, and fresh bread, and sat by the window watching people laugh and flirt and haggle in the street below. The next day I wandered the local market, and the day after that I stood in Ephesus watching the pillars older than belief. On the third day I wrote, "Okay, I'm ready to meet someone. Not to fix me, not to marry me, just someone to have an adventure with. I trust the right and perfect person will appear." I didn't manifest. I didn't swipe. I simply asked. That evening, sitting on a bench by the water with a book in my lap and the shawl around my shoulders, someone sat down next to me. A woman, maybe mid-50s, with a face that looked like she'd walked through a wind tunnel of fists. Red, yellow, brown, bruising everywhere, swollen eyes, puffy cheeks. I looked up, startled. She smiled crookedly. "I know, I look like I got hit by a truck." I smiled back warm. "Yeah, a little." She laughed. "Nose repair from a childhood accident, and while they were at it, a facelift." "Well, I hope you got a discount." "Oh, I did, and the tea service too," she grinned. Melissa, I'm from Calgary, but my roots are all Turkish, both sets of my grandparents. We started talking and then kept talking. Melissa knew all the little things, how to order without getting tourist prices, where to find the best borak, how to say just the right things and get exactly what she wanted. She introduced me to so many new things. She said she'd be in Izmir for a few months, long enough for the bruising to fade and long enough to escape her own version of noise at home. At the end of the night, I felt it, that quiet click, that familiar pull. Melissa wasn't a soulmate. She was something better, a new friend, someone to talk with, to eat with, to laugh with until our tea went cold. And maybe, I thought as I drifted off to sleep that night, this was a real miracle. Saying yes to life, not to control it, but to let it meet you somewhere warm, full of olives and sunlight and the right people at the right time. Chapter 9. I came back to the hotel room, sticky with sea air and scrubbed raw from a Turkish bath and full of lamb stew and pistachio baklava. My limbs felt like velvet. My hair smelt like eucalyptus. My belly was happy, my cheeks sun-kissed, and my heart wide open. I dropped my shawl on the chair, kicked off my sandals, and lay back on the bed with a groan so satisfied that it sounded like a prayer. I can't believe I'm doing this, I said out loud to no one. Turkey, a solo trip, a new friend with a healing face and a crooked laugh, and ancient ruins that gave me chills, a vendor market where they taught me to say thank you with both hands on my chest, and that bath, steamed and scrubbed and rinsed and oiled, like being reborn on a warm marble slab. I'd never known I could be this adventurous, and yet I didn't feel reckless. I felt grounded and centered, as if all of this, every moment, every change, had been earned. The journal lay on the table beside me, the soft cover worn with use now. I hadn't read it since arriving. There was too much to see and too much to taste. But tonight I reached for it again, lit the small bedside lamp, pulled the blanket up over my bare legs, and I flipped to the next page. The blue door. Imagine a door, not just a door in a wall, but a door in your mind, in your body, a door that only appears when you are still enough to notice it. I sat up a little straighter. It's always blue, not paint store blue, a shade you can't name but always recognized, like calm had a color, like possibility had a pulse. I paused and closed my eyes and saw it. There it was, soft blue, wooden, worn around the edges, no doorknob, just a presence. I wasn't floating or glowing or surrounded by angels. It was just simple and solid, like something my soul built a long time ago and was now remembering how to use. I kept reading. You don't have to open it. Just stand in front of it and know it's there. That's where the shift begins. I let my breath slow, felt my chest rise and fall. There was no rush, no goal, just this moment and the quiet question forming in the space behind my ribs. I'm following this journal, and if this has gotten me this far, what else might be waiting? I drifted to sleep, not with answers, but with ease, wrapped in warm blankets, Turkish air, and the gentle knowing that my life was no longer something to manage or escape. It was something to enter. And the door? The door was open, even if a little. Chapter 10. The walk along the waterfront had been longer than expected. I wandered past food stalls and laughing children and fishermen mending their nets and lovers tangled on stone benches. The salty breeze tugged at my scarf. The light had changed 3 times. By the time I returned to my hotel, my calves ached and my feet hummed. I didn't rush. I lit a candle, poured a glass of water with lemon, then opened my music app and just felt. I didn't listen to fulfill my need for music. I let my choices and my fingers hover until something inside me gave that quiet yes. I let myself feel my choices. I built a 20-minute playlist like a ritual, one for remembering, one for softening, one for rising, one for arriving. I dimmed the lights, rolled out my mat, and began to move. Not with choreography, not with form, but with presence. Each note moved in me like a tide. I unwound my shoulders and my hips swayed, and my hands floated like they remembered the air. The music pulsed through me like a heartbeat I hadn't heard for decades, not loud, not wild, just true. And when the music stopped, I lay on the floor in silence. Breath came slowly. Soft inhale through the nose, full belly, long exhale out the mouth, letting go, again and again. Breath by breath, the room began to change, not outside of me, but inside. The blue door was there, as vivid as the day before, soft and steady, blue like a feeling, not a color, old and known. But this time I just didn't see it. I stepped toward it. I didn't ask if it was safe. I didn't overthink. I was ready. And when I reached out without hands, but with somewhere deeper, the door responded. It opened, not with a creak, with a sigh. What came next wasn't a vision. It wasn't even a dream. It was everything, light, not like a bulb or the sun, but like a presence, warmth that didn't burn, a hum that felt like a lullaby wrapped in thunder. I wasn't floating. I wasn't flying. I was becoming a part of everything, the sea, the sky, the people laughing in the streets, the birds overhead, the woman scrubbing tile, the man pouring tea, the song that I danced to. The child I once was, all of it, I was that. And it was me. Tears streamed down my cheeks, not from emotion, but from the totality of it all. Love, not romantic, not conditional, but universal. You belong, the experience whispered, and you always have. And then I knew. Every question I'd ever had an answer here. Every longing, every ache, every wonder, all of it was available, waiting to be received. I didn't need to ask 1,000 things, only one. What am I now? And the response, but not words, it was a knowing. You are the one who remembers. You are the one who opens. You are the space, the stillness, and the song. When I opened my eyes, I was still on the floor. The candle flickered low. The playlist had ended. But something inside me was forever changed. Not in the way that needed proving, not in a way that needed sharing, just a quiet, cellular knowing. I have walked through the blue door, and now I walk with it. Chapter 11. The next morning, the air felt different, not just the sea breeze or the call to prayer drifting softly from the mosque nearby, something else. I sat by the window with my tea and watched the world move. It shimmered, not in a sparkly, mystical way, more like vibration. The man selling simmet had a faint glow when he laughed with a customer. A couple walking arm in arm radiated pink and orange, warm and soft like a sunrise. And the two women at the next table, their edges pulsed red and gray, sharp and tight, like they were smiling through clenched teeth. I didn't try to see it, I just did. And it wasn't just the colors, it was the feelings. I could sense in the air between people love, ease, anxiety, resentment, even when they weren't speaking English. A conversation on the tram gave me a strange heaviness in my chest, even though I couldn't understand the words. Later at a cafe I had a fluttering of joy from the waiter before he even said hello. I wasn't judging it, just noticing it. The whole world was textured now, layered and alive. That afternoon, I found Melissa by the water sipping from a small cup of strong Turkish coffee. You ever feel like the world is humming? I asked, sitting beside her. Melissa looked up and one eyebrow lifted. Right now or always? Now, like since yesterday. Melissa smiled. You look like you're vibrating. I smiled. I feel like I am. So I told her about the music, the breathwork, the door, the experience, the light, the knowing. I didn't dramatize it, didn't try to explain every detail. Just shared it like you'd share a dream that stayed with you all day. Melissa listened with wide eyes and a stillness that made me feel even more heard. And then I paused. She exhaled. You're not losing your mind, you know. Oh, I know, I said. I think I finally found it. That evening, Melissa came to my hotel room with her mat to sit on and with an open heart. We lit a candle, we played soft music, and we moved gently and we breathed in rhythm. No agenda, just presence. I led a short practice in my own blend of intuitive movement and breath and silence. Melissa followed with a quiet reverence. Afterward, she brought out the journal, and I read aloud. Breathing energy. Everything has a field. People, trees, chairs. It's not about seeing auras or being psychic. It's about listening with your whole body. You already know when somebody loves you. You already know when you're not safe. The trick is learning to trust it. Melissa leaned back, eyes closed. Your aunt was a badass, she said. I smiled, tracing the edge of the page with my thumb. Yes, she really was. We sat in the glow of the candle. Two women who had only met recently, now meeting in a place beyond worlds. For the first time since my shift, I didn't feel like a woman discovering something new. I felt like a woman returning to something I'd always known. Chapter 12. I'd been wandering the narrow back streets of the promenade when I saw the sign, a hand-painted board hanging above a wooden doorway. Sacred Breath Yoga and Healing Collective. The lettering was uneven and the paint faded. Still, something about it caught my eye. I stepped inside, a small, colorful shop with scarves hanging from the ceiling and essential oils lined up against the wall. A young woman behind the counter greeted me kindly. Looking for something, she said, in very good English. I smiled. I was wondering about classes. She gestured toward a narrow staircase at the back. You can ask downstairs. The owner is down there, and he'll know the schedule. I nodded and I walked down the stairs. The moment my foot touched the first step, my stomach flipped. Not butterflies, not nerves, something deeper, darker, a twisting, low and tight. A feeling radiated up through my ribs and across my chest like a silent alarm. I paused and I took another step and it intensified. A wave of discomfort rolled through me, hot, heavy, and undeniable. This isn't mine, I thought, but I'm feeling it anyway. I took one more step and my whole body lit up with the message, no, leave now. There were no voices, no dramatic signs, just a knowing, a full body, loud and clear, absolutely not. I turned, I didn't apologize, didn't wait, walked quickly back up the stairs, out the door, and out into the sunlight. My heart was pounding, not from fear, from truth. Whatever was down there wasn't for me. It doesn't matter what it was, didn't need an explanation, it just wasn't right for me. Walking back along the waterfront, I felt my breath slow and a memory came. A timeshare years ago, a sales pitch on the beach, a free lunch, a tan, persuasive man with a clipboard of a just sign here smile. I hadn't want to. There was a flicker of unease and a quiet don't do it in my belly. But my husband had been excited. They offered champagne and I didn't want to be difficult, so I signed. I still owned it. Still paid the fees, still rolled my eyes every time that envelope showed up in the mail. And now, in retrospect, I could feel it, the same twinge, quieter maybe, but there. I just hadn't known how to trust it back then. Now I did. That night, back in my hotel room, I wrote in the margins of Eleanor's journal. It doesn't matter what it was. It matters that I knew and I felt, and that's enough. I didn't need to peek through behind every curtain. I didn't need to investigate what didn't feel right. I just needed to listen, and listening was enough. Chapter 13. I hadn't planned to go for another walk that day. My legs were still tired from the day before, but the air off the water had a warmth to it, a calling. So I grabbed my sandals and slipped on my soft cotton dress and followed the sound of the waves and the laughter. I walked the shoreline slowly, letting the water kiss my toes, just letting myself feel and be there. And then I saw him. Not in a special way, not in a movie scene slow motion, just a man standing near a food cart, enjoying the food, talking to the vendor. He glanced over, caught my eye, and smiled with a softness that didn't ask for anything. It just said, I see you. Beautiful day, he said, his accent lilting and rich. I nodded, perfect for walking aimlessly. He laughed. I do that professionally. I raised an eyebrow. I'm a tour guide, he explained, pulling a business card from his pocket and offering it gently. On my day off, but I never really stop exploring. His name was Jem, and there was something about his presence. It just felt right. Not fireworks, not butterflies, just a warm, clear pull. A knowing, safe, real, and expansive. We walked a little, talked a little. He told me about small caves only the locals knew about, secret cafes built into cliff sides, a music festival happening next week, and a small group tour he'd been trying to fill up for the following day. I have one spot left, he said almost sheepishly. If it feels right, I'd love for you to join. It did feel right. And just like that, without overthinking, I said yes. A 7-day tour unfolded like magic. Boat rides through turquoise coves, picnics in ancient ruins, caves that echoed with the sound of my breath, a sunrise balloon ride that made me cry from sheer beauty. There were others on the tours, kind, curious travelers who shared meals, stories, and laughter with ease. I felt like I belonged without effort. At the evening concert, beneath a canopy of stars and string lights, somebody handed me a glass of wine and said, "You have the look of somebody who remembered how to be alive." I smiled, touched my heart, and whispered, "I did." After the tour ended, I sat by the hotel pool and stared at my return flight confirmation. It suddenly felt too soon. The idea of going back felt like turning off music mid-song. I looked up new flight options, called the airline, changed my return for a month later. Just like that. My son was thrilled. "You sound so happy, Mom." Like more than happy, like free. Others weren't so sure. My sister's voice was tight with concern. "Are you okay? Like really okay? You just sound different." "I am different," I said, "but not because something's wrong." Then what? Because I finally let life happen, and I'm finally showing up for it. Later that night, reading by the open balcony doors, I wrote in the journal, I used to think a life crisis meant something breaking. But what if it just means something is waking up? I was learning how to listen and how to feel truth, how to know what was mine and what to say yes to. And now I was saying yes to every chance I got. Chapter 14. It happened at breakfast. A woman in her 50s sat by the table beside me, alone picking at her food, sunglasses still on indoors. I noticed her the day before, wrapped tightly in a sweater despite the heat. Her energy was pinched, like someone holding in a scream and trying not to fall apart. Not my business, except I felt it, the pull. Not the kind that demanded, the kind that nudged. I didn't interrupt. I just moved my table slightly closer, sat quietly, ate my breakfast. Eventually, the woman looked over and said, "You're glowing. Did you get a massage or something?" I smiled. "Just slept and breathed a lot." She gave a small laugh. It cracked something open. 5 minutes later, we were talking. 20 minutes later, we were walking by the water. Her name was Cheryl, recently divorced, first solo trip of her life. I thought coming here would help me feel strong, but I just feel stupid and lost and ridiculous, she said. I listened. I didn't fix, didn't offer advice. Then gently I said, "Would you like to try something with me? Just 10 minutes. Breath and movement. No talking, no expectations." Cheryl looked unsure but nodded. We found a quiet patch of grass under a fig tree. I put on the music, Paul Luftenegger's My Heart, and started moving softly. Nothing choreographed, just felt. I motioned for Cheryl to close her eyes. We stood barefoot. I breathed deep. She followed. A minute passed, then 2. Then Cheryl exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years, tears silently streaking down her cheeks. No breakdown, just a release. Afterwards, she hugged me and said, "You don't even know what you just did." I said, "I didn't do anything. You just let go." That night, I wrote, "The lighthouse doesn't chase the boats. It just stands there shining. And the boats find their way." And that was what my Aunt Eleanor meant. Not about doing, but being. Let your energy speak first, letting people meet you there or not. Either way, you shine. Chapter 15. The dream came quietly, sun-dappled forest, moss under my feet, breath in the rhythm with the wind. I wasn't just present, I was leading. People in a circle, eyes closed, hearts open. I heard myself speak. You are not your thoughts. You are love. You are light. Let go. Surrender. Allow. Behind me, a soft blue glow. Not a door this time. A path, an invitation. I woke with the knowing. This is what I'm here to do. Not perform, not teach. Hold space. Shine gently. At the airport later that week, I met 4 women laughing at the gate. Dried apricots, woven bracelets, flowing pants. They had just finished leading a retreat, called themselves 4 Retreats Only. One of them, visibly pregnant, said, I'm stepping back for a while. We'll be looking for somebody new. I didn't think. I just said, can I have your contact info? They beamed. One handed me a card, 4 names, and a golden spiral. The back read, the right people always find each other. Weeks later, I got the message. A spot had opened up for a co-leader on a retreat in Spain. Was I interested? I didn't need details. I just knew. Years passing like soft pages turning. Breathwork in Spanish groves. Forest walks in Austria. Stillness circles in Italy. And always Turkey, my beginning, my becoming. I never forced anything. I followed the pull. I lived by Eleanor's notes. And above all, I let love lead. Chapter 16. I still kept the apartment, not because I needed it, because it needed me. It held me, heard me, housed the cracks in the coming home. I didn't stay now often, but when I did, I moved slowly through it like a sacred space. The mismatched dishes still caught the morning light. The vintage chair still creaked just right. And Eleanor's journey? No longer alone. It was surrounded by mine, scribbles, truths, little breadcrumbs, and maps. Amy came now often. Our relationship had softened, not through convincing, but through presence. She became curious and then respectful, then glowing. We're having a girl, she said, one day, her hand on her belly. Quiet tears found me, not from grief, from roots. That night I lit a candle and wrote in the journal for someone specific. To you, my granddaughter, maybe you'll find this book when you're searching. Not for something out there, but for the door within. The blue door isn't in Turkey. It's not in a retreat. It's not in a forest or in a yoga class. The blue door is a presence. It's the breath you come back to. It's the moment you stop performing and start becoming. It's the part of you that remembers who you really are, an expression of the divine. I closed the journal and set it down beside the flickering candle. Just for a second, on the floor, my feet shimmered, a blue. I didn't gasp, I smiled. Not surprised, not mystified, just home. Just home. The end. Thank you for walking through this story with me. The blue door isn't just a doorway. It's a remembering, a breath, a presence of who we are beneath the noise. Chris's journey is fictional, yet the essence of it is real. So many of us are learning how to pause, how to listen again, how to trust what pulls us without needing proof. If this story opens something in you, even slightly, stay with it. Let it unfold. You don't need to chase your truth. Just meet it. The door was never far. It's always within. And if you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to TOADStories for more tales of awakening, healing, and the quiet power of choosing differently. Thank you, sweet soul, for being here.